My twin brother Marcus showed up at the rehabilitation center in Thunder Bay with his face looking like raw meat. Purple bruises circled both eyes. His lip was split open, and he walked with the kind of careful shuffle that told me his ribs were cracked. The moment I saw him through the visitor room window, something cold and sharp woke up inside me. I wonder how many fathers and grandfathers are listening to this right now. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story about protecting family has traveled tonight. Marcus and I are identical twins. Same gray hair, same weathered faces, same crooked nose we inherited from our father. But our lives took different paths a long time ago. People said I had anger issues. The doctors called it intermittent explosive disorder. I called it loving too hard and hitting too fast. That combination landed me in this rehabilitation facility outside Thunder Bay 3 years ago after I put my neighbor in the hospital for kicking his dog. The judge gave me a choice between prison and intensive therapy. I chose therapy. 3 years of learning to breathe through the rage. 3 years of group sessions and medication adjustments and journaling about my feelings. The staff thought they were fixing me. Maybe they were. Or maybe they were just sharpening a blade that had gotten dull. Marcus collapsed into the plastic chair across from me, and I could see his hands shaking. His fingernails were bitten down to nothing, something he only did when he was terrified. "Malcolm," he whispered, "I need your help. What happened to you?" He looked around the visiting room, making sure no orderlies were close enough to hear. "It's Rachel, her husband Vincent. He's been hurting her for years. I found out last month and tried to stop him." Rachel, my granddaughter. The little girl who used to sit on my knee and beg me to tell her stories about the wolves in the northern forests. She was 32 now, married to some businessman from Sudbury that I had never met. I missed her wedding because I was locked up in here. Vincent and his family jumped me in the garage, Marcus continued. His mother held my arms while his sister kicked me in the ribs. Vincent used a hockey stick. The cold thing inside me turned to ice, then to fire. "There's more." Marcus's voice cracked. "Little Emma. She's only 4 years old." Vincent started hitting her too. Rachel tried to leave, but Vincent controls all the money. She has nowhere to go. Emma, my great-granddaughter, a child I had only seen in photographs, smiling with her mother's eyes and her grandmother's dimples. I stood up and walked to the barred window, looking out at the frozen Lake Superior in the distance. 3 years of therapy. 3 years of learning that violence solves nothing. 3 years of becoming a better man. But some things are worth burning for. I turned back to my brother. "Marcus, look at me. Really look." He raised his head, and it was like staring into a mirror. Same face, same scars, same silver stubble. The only difference was that I had spent 3 years doing push-ups in my room every night, while he had spent 3 years getting beaten down by life. We're identical. Nobody could tell us apart when we were young. Nobody can tell us apart now. Understanding flickered in his swollen eyes. "Malcolm, no, you can't. You'll lose everything you've worked for. They'll send you to prison this time." I smiled, and it felt like cracking ice. "Brother, I've been living with my demons for 3 years. I've learned their names, I've learned their weaknesses, and I've learned exactly how much damage a patient man can do." Within 2 hours, we had switched clothes, switched identification, switched lives. The security guard barely glanced at the discharge papers as I walked out the front door wearing Marcus's winter coat that smelled like fear and Tim Hortons coffee. The drive to Sudbury took 6 hours through February snow, 6 hours to plan, 6 hours to remember every breathing technique they taught me, every anger management strategy, every way to channel rage into something productive. By the time I reached the city limits, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. The address Marcus gave me led to a tired-looking split level in a neighborhood that had seen better decades. The lawn was brown despite the snow, and the mailbox hung crooked on its post. A rusted pickup truck sat in the driveway next to a shiny black BMW. Money for him, scraps for everyone else. I let myself in with Marcus's key. The smell hit me first. Stale cigarettes, unwashed dishes, something sour underneath it all. The living room was chaos. Beer bottles everywhere, laundry piled on furniture, a television blaring some hockey game to an empty couch. Then I heard it. A small voice, barely a whisper. Don't cry, Mommy. Don't cry. I followed the sound to the kitchen. Rachel stood at the sink, her back to me, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She wore a heavy sweater despite the heat from the radiator, and I knew it was to hide the bruises. Her blonde hair, once bright as summer wheat, hung limp and unwashed. And there was Emma, 4 years old, sitting on the floor in the corner, hugging her knees to her chest. She wore a stained purple dress that was too big for her, and her eyes held the kind of emptiness that no child should ever know. In her arms, she clutched a stuffed moose with one ear torn off. She looked up at me, and instead of recognition, I saw fear, pure, animal fear of a man entering the room. My heart shattered into 1,000 frozen pieces. "Grandpa's here, Rachel," I said softly, using Marcus's nickname. "Emma, Grandpa's here now." Rachel spun around, her eyes red and puffy. "Dad? Oh God, Dad, you shouldn't be here. If Vincent finds out you came back." Before she could finish, a door slammed somewhere in the house, and footsteps thundered down the hallway. Well, 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 look who crawled back. Gloria Marchetti filled the doorway like a storm cloud in a floral housecoat. Vincent's mother was a heavy-set woman with small, mean eyes and gray hair pulled back so tight it stretched her face into a permanent scowl. Behind her lurked Denise, Vincent's younger sister, carrying her own 5-year-old son on her hip. The boy, Tyler, had chocolate smeared around his mouth, and the entitled sneer of a child who had never heard the word no. "I thought we taught you a lesson about sticking your nose where it doesn't belong," Gloria snarled. "Guess you're even stupider than you look." Rachel shrank back against the counter. Emma curled up smaller in her corner, trying to become invisible. "Gloria," I said calmly. "Denise, we need to talk about how things are going to work around here from now on." Both women stopped, confusion flickering across their faces. Marcus had never spoken to them like that. Marcus had always cowered, always apologized, always absorbed their abuse without fighting back. But I wasn't Marcus. I was the brother who spent 3 years learning to control a rage that could move mountains. "Excuse me?" Gloria's voice dripped with contempt. "Did you just talk back to me in my son's house? After everything he does for your useless daughter?" Tyler squirmed down from his mother's arms and immediately zeroed in on Emma. He marched over to her corner and grabbed the stuffed moose from her hands. "This is stupid," he announced. "You're stupid too." "Give it back," Emma whispered. "Please." "No. Finders. Keepers." He threw the moose across the room, and it hit the wall with a soft thump. Then he drew back his hand to slap her. I moved faster than I had moved in years. My hand closed around his wrist before it could connect. Not hard enough to hurt, just hard enough to stop. "No," I said quietly. The boy's eyes went wide. "Grandma! Mommy! He's touching me!" Gloria charged forward like a bull. "Let go of my grandson right now. How dare you!" I released Tyler and straightened to my full height. At 6'2", I towered over both women, and something in my eyes, something 3 years of therapy hadn't quite erased, made Gloria take an involuntary step backward. "Your grandson needs to learn that hitting is wrong," I said. "Strange that nobody taught him that. Don't you dare tell us how to raise our family." But her voice had lost its edge. "You're nothing but a freeloader, living off my son's generosity." I took 1 step toward her. She took 2 steps back. "Things are going to change around here," I said, "starting tonight." Denise grabbed Tyler's hand and pulled him toward the hallway. "Come on, baby. Let's go watch TV in Grandma's room." "But I want to play." "Not right now." And Denise practically ran, never taking her eyes off me until they disappeared around the corner. The house fell into an uneasy silence. Rachel stared at me with wide, confused eyes. Emma peeked out from behind the counter where she had retreated, clutching her moose again. "Dad," Rachel whispered, "what's gotten into you? You've never stood up to them before." I knelt down beside my great-granddaughter, moving slowly so I wouldn't scare her. "Maybe it's time I started, sweetheart. Maybe it's long past time." The rumble of a diesel engine cut through the silence around midnight. I had been lying awake on the threadbare couch, listening to the house settle, waiting for the predator to come home. Vincent Marchetti announced his arrival by knocking over the garbage cans in the driveway, then stumbling up the front steps while cursing loud enough to wake the neighbors. The door crashed open, and the stench of whiskey and cigarettes rolled in like fog off Lake Huron. "Rachel!" His voice was a snarl that probably carried 3 houses down. "Get your ass out here!" I sat up slowly, every muscle coiled and ready. 3 years of controlled breathing, 3 years of meditation, 3 years of learning that the best revenge is served with patience and precision. Vincent lurched into the living room and spotted me on the couch. Even drunk, even swaying on his feet, he was a big man. 6 feet of muscle going soft around the middle, wearing a grease-stained work jacket and jeans that reeked of the bar. His face was flushed red, and his piggy little eyes swept the room, looking for someone to hurt. "The hell are you doing here, old man?" His words slurred together. "Thought I told you to stay away from my family." From the back bedroom came the sound of Rachel trying to quiet Emma's frightened whimpers. Vincent kicked over the coffee table, sending magazines and empty bottles scattering across the floor. I said, "Get up! You want another lesson like last time? You want my mother to hold you down again while I—" He lunged at me, throwing a wild punch that a sober man would have been embarrassed by. I caught his wrist like catching a slow pitch in the backyard. "What the—" Vincent's eyes went wide with shock. He tried to pull free, but 3 years of push-ups and pull-ups had given me a grip like a steel trap. He swung with his other hand, and I caught that one too. "We need to discuss some new house rules," I said. "Let go of me!" Vincent thrashed and twisted, but with both arms pinned, he was helpless as a fish on a line. "I'll kill you! I'll—" Rule number 1. I applied steady pressure to his right wrist, feeling the bones grind together. "You don't hit Rachel anymore." The snap was clean and sharp, like breaking a dry branch over your knee. Vincent's scream could have woken the dead. Rule number 2. You don't touch Emma. Ever. I drove my knee into his stomach with surgical precision. All the air left his lungs in a whoosh, and his knees buckled. I released his wrists and let him crumple to the floor, gasping and crying like the coward he was. From down the hallway came the sound of doors slamming and frantic whispers, but Gloria and Denise were too scared to investigate the screaming. I stood over Vincent and watched him writhe in pain, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. 3 years of therapy, and this was what I had to show for it. Not peace, not forgiveness, just better aim. The next morning brought the RCMP to the front door. 2 officers in their brown uniforms, a younger constable with nervous eyes, and an older sergeant with the weathered face of someone who had seen too much domestic violence in too many Northern Ontario homes. "We received a complaint about an assault," the sergeant said, looking between me and Vincent, who sat at the kitchen table cradling his broken wrist. "Mind telling us what happened here?" Vincent pointed at me with his good hand, his face pale and sweaty. "That crazy old bastard attacked me for no reason. I want him arrested. I want him charged with assault causing bodily harm." The constable examined Vincent's wrist, wincing at the unnatural angle. "This is going to need surgery, sir. That's a serious injury." I reached into the kitchen drawer where Rachel kept her important papers. Marcus had told me exactly where to find them. "Officers, before we go any further, there's something you need to see." I spread the documents across the table like evidence at a trial. Medical reports, X-rays, photographs of bruises in various stages of healing, doctors' notes documenting injuries consistent with repeated physical abuse. All dated over the past 5 years, all with Rachel's name. "These are my daughter's medical records," I said quietly. "Every time he's beaten her." The sergeant picked up a photograph. Rachel's face so swollen she could barely open her eyes. "Jesus Christ. And these are my records from last month. More photos, more bruises, more evidence of violence. Vincent and his family did this when I tried to stop him from hitting my granddaughter." The constable studied the dates, his expression hardening. "Mr. Marchetti, these records show a pattern going back years. You're telling us this elderly man just randomly attacked you? Those are—" "She fell," Vincent sputtered. "She's clumsy. She walks into doors." "Multiple times?" The sergeant raised an eyebrow. "She broke her own ribs, walking into doors?" Rachel stepped forward from the hallway, Emma hiding behind her legs. For the first time in years, she spoke without trembling. "Officers, it's all true. Everything in those files. He hits me almost every day. Last month, he started hitting Emma too. When my father tried to protect us, Vincent and his family beat him in the garage." The officers exchanged a look that said more than words ever could. "Mr. Marchetti," the sergeant said coldly, "based on this evidence, we could arrest you right now. The only reason we're not is because your victims haven't formally pressed charges. Yet, but my wrist! He broke my wrist! After you assaulted an elderly man trying to protect his family from documented abuse." The constable closed his notebook. "You're lucky he didn't do worse. This is your only warning. If we get called back to this address, you're going straight to the Sudbury jail." They left Vincent holding his broken wrist, staring at the mountain of evidence that destroyed every lie he had ever told. 2 days later, Gloria decided to try a different approach. She emerged from her bedroom wearing a smile that made my skin crawl, her voice dripping with honey instead of venom. Denise followed behind, carrying a pot of something that smelled delicious. "Marcus, dear," Gloria called out in a tone she had never used before, "I made my famous beef stew. Why don't you join us for dinner? I think we got off on the wrong foot, and I want to apologize." Rachel looked up from where she was helping Emma with a puzzle, surprise flickering across her face. In 7 years of marriage, Gloria had never once invited her or her father to share a family meal. "That's very kind of you," I replied, keeping my voice neutral as I sat down at the kitchen table. The bowl Gloria placed in front of me smelled wonderful. Chunks of beef, potatoes, carrots, rich brown gravy. But something about her eager expression, the way Denise kept glancing at the bowl, set every alarm bell ringing in my head. "Go on, try it," Gloria urged, practically bouncing on her feet. "It's my mother's recipe, special seasoning." I lifted the spoon to my lips, pretending to taste the broth. Then I jerked my elbow as if startled by something, sending the bowl flying off the table. Stew splattered across the linoleum in a steaming puddle. "Oh no!" I exclaimed, jumping up. "I'm so sorry, Gloria. How clumsy of me. I thought I heard Emma calling." Gloria's face cycled through disappointment, then fury, then forced understanding, all in the span of 2 seconds. It's fine. These things happen." I saw the look that passed between her and Denise. They had been counting on that stew doing something more than satisfying my hunger. "I'll just make myself a sandwich," I said, cleaning up the mess. "Don't trouble yourself making another batch." That night, I pretended to fall asleep on the couch around 10 o'clock, but I kept my ears open and my muscles ready. The house settled into darkness. Hours passed. Around 2 in the morning, I heard the soft creak of footsteps in the hallway. Someone was trying very hard to be quiet. Through barely opened eyelids, I watched Vincent's silhouette approach the couch. Despite his broken wrist, he carried a coil of rope in his good hand, and his face was set with grim determination. He moved slowly, carefully, reaching out to grab my shoulder. That's when I struck. My hand shot up and clamped around his throat before he could make a sound. His eyes went wide with terror as I sat up, my grip cutting off his air supply. "Going somewhere?" I whispered. He tried to struggle, but with one useless arm and no air in his lungs, he was helpless within seconds. His eyes rolled back, and he went limp. It took me less than 5 minutes to drag him into the master bedroom and secure him to the bed frame with his own rope. I gagged him with a pillowcase to keep him quiet, then crept out the back door and around to the side of the house where Gloria and Denise were sleeping. I pounded on the wall and screamed at the top of my lungs. "Help! Gloria! Denise! He's beating me again! Help me, please!" I threw in convincing groans and the sound of furniture crashing, really selling the performance. "He's gone crazy. He's going to kill me. Someone help!" Within seconds, I heard footsteps thundering through the house. Gloria burst through the bedroom door first, clutching a heavy flashlight like a weapon, her face twisted with savage glee. Denise was right behind her, wielding a metal curtain rod with the enthusiasm of someone who had been waiting years for this moment. "Where is he?" Gloria hissed, squinting into the darkness. "Where's that old bastard?" The bedroom was pitch black, except for a sliver of light from the hallway. On the bed, They could make out the silhouette of a figure tied down and struggling, muffled sounds coming from behind what appeared to be a gag. "There," Denise pointed with her makeshift weapon. "He's trying to get loose." What they couldn't see in the darkness was me crouched in the corner, my phone's camera recording everything with crystal clarity. What they also couldn't see was that the person tied to the bed wasn't me at all. "This is for embarrassing our family." Gloria raised the flashlight above her head and brought it down hard across the figure's ribs. The muffled scream that followed should have given them pause. It sounded wrong, too deep, too male. But they were too caught up in their bloodlust to notice. "And this is for breaking Vincent's wrist." Denise swung the curtain rod like a hockey stick, connecting with the figure's shoulder. More muffled screaming, more desperate struggling against the ropes. "Hit him harder," Gloria panted, bringing the flashlight down again and again. "Make him regret ever coming to this house." Denise was in a frenzy now, raining blows on the helpless figure. "You think you're so tough?" "Not so tough when you can't fight back, are you?" The beating went on for what felt like hours, but was probably only a few minutes. Both women were breathing hard, sweat pouring down their faces as they took turns hitting their victim with everything they had. Finally, Gloria stepped back, wiping her forehead. "I think he's learned his lesson this time." "Should we untie him?" Denise asked, still gripping her weapon. "Not yet. Let him think about what happens when you mess with the Marchetti family." That's when I stood up and flipped the light switch. The sudden brightness made both women squint and shield their eyes. When their vision cleared, they found themselves staring at a scene that would haunt them forever. Vincent lay tied to the bed, his face a mask of blood and fresh bruises. His broken wrist was bent at an even more impossible angle now. His eyes were wide with pain and terror above the gag, and his chest rose and fell in rapid, shallow breaths. Gloria's flashlight clattered to the floor. Denise's mouth fell open in a perfect circle of horror. "Surprise," I said calmly, holding up my phone with the camera still recording. "Say hello to the evidence." "Oh my God." Gloria's voice was barely a whisper as she stared at her unconscious son. "Oh my God, what have we done?" "What you've done," I corrected, "is commit aggravated assault with weapons. On camera. With clear audio of you admitting it was revenge." Denise started shaking so hard she could barely stand. We thought, you said." I said Vincent was beating me. "You assumed I was the one tied up. That assumption is going to cost you both about 5 to 10 years in a federal penitentiary." Gloria fell to her knees beside the bed, reaching for Vincent with trembling hands. "Baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't mean to. Don't touch him. You've done enough damage." I held up the phone again, making sure they could see the red recording light. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm calling 911. You're both going to jail. And this video is going to make sure you stay there for a very, very long time." Both women were crying now, the reality of what they had done finally sinking in. Within minutes, I was on the phone with emergency services, calmly reporting a serious assault at 247 Maple Street. The wail of sirens split the night like a chorus of justice. Red and blue lights painted the snowy street in strobing colors as 2 RCMP cruisers and an ambulance squeezed into the driveway. The sergeant from the previous visit was first through the door, his hand resting on his weapon until he saw me standing calmly in the living room. "Mr. Miller." His voice was flat, professional. "What's the situation?" "The situation," I said, holding up my phone, "is that I have video evidence of aggravated assault with weapons. Clear faces, clear audio, clear intent." I led them to the bedroom where Gloria and Denise huddled in the corner, still in shock from what they had done. Vincent lay unconscious on the bed, his breathing shallow and labored. "Jesus Christ," one of the paramedics muttered, immediately going to work checking Vincent's vital signs. "This guy's in rough shape. Multiple contusions, possible internal bleeding, and this wrist is completely shattered now. He's going to need surgery." The constable looked at the blood-stained flashlight and curtain rod on the floor, then at the 2 women. "Ladies, you're under arrest for aggravated assault causing bodily harm." "But we thought it was." Gloria started to protest. "Ma'am," the sergeant interrupted, "I don't care what you thought. You beat a man with weapons while he was tied to a bed. That's attempted murder in my book." The constable read them their rights while fitting handcuffs around their wrists. Denise was sobbing uncontrollably. Gloria kept staring at her unconscious son with the horror of someone who had destroyed the thing she loved most. "The video shows everything," I told the sergeant, handing him my phone. "They came in with weapons, admitted it was revenge for me standing up to them, and beat him for several minutes while he was completely helpless." The sergeant watched the footage, his expression growing darker with each second. "This is some of the clearest evidence of assault I've ever seen. These women are going away for a long time." The paramedics loaded Vincent onto a stretcher, working frantically to stabilize him. "We need to get him to Health Sciences North immediately. He's got internal bleeding and I'm worried about his spine." As they wheeled him out, Gloria called desperately, "Vincent, baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was you." "Save it for the judge," the constable said, guiding her toward the cruiser. Within an hour, the house was empty, except for me, Rachel, Emma, and one very confused 5-year-old boy. Tyler stood in the middle of the living room, looking around at the bloodstains and overturned furniture, trying to process what had happened to his world. His grandmother and mother were gone. His uncle was in the hospital, and the old man he had been bullying was suddenly in charge. "Where's my mommy?" he asked in a small, frightened voice. "Your mommy and grandma did something very bad," I explained, crouching down to his level. "They hurt someone, so the police had to take them away." His lower lip started trembling. For all his bratty behavior, he was still just a scared little kid whose world had just collapsed. "Am I in trouble too?" "That depends. Do you remember how you treated Emma? The way you took her toys and pushed her?" He nodded, shame coloring his cheeks. "Well, Tyler, here's the thing. Your mommy and grandma are going to be gone for a while. That means you're going to be staying here with us. And in this house, we have rules." I stood up and walked over to Emma, who was watching from behind Rachel's legs with cautious curiosity. "Emma," I said formally, "I hereby name you queen of this house. And Tyler," I continued, turning back to the boy, "you are now Sir Tyler, sworn knight of Queen Emma. Your job is to protect her, share with her, and make sure she's happy and safe. Can you do that?" Tyler's eyes widened. Despite everything, the idea of being a knight clearly appealed to him. "What does a knight do?" he asked. "A knight shares his toys with the queen. A knight never pushes or hits the queen. A knight makes sure the queen gets the best snacks and the most comfortable chair. Think you can handle that, Sir Tyler?" He looked over at Emma, who was watching him with cautious hope. "Yes," he said quietly, "I can do that." 2 weeks later, Vincent limped through the front door with his arm in a cast and his ribs wrapped in bandages. Behind him shuffled Gloria and Denise, both looking like they had aged 20 years during their time in the Sudbury jail. Their court dates were set, their lawyers were expensive, and their futures were bleak. "Well, well," I said from my seat at the kitchen table, where I had been helping Emma with her coloring book. "The family's all here." Vincent couldn't look at me. His own mother had beaten him so badly, he needed 2 surgeries to repair the damage. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. "We're back," he mumbled at the floor. "The charges were dropped when I refused to testify against them. How generous of you." I stood and walked to the counter where I had prepared a folder full of documents. "But since we're all together, it's time to settle some accounts." Gloria's eyes narrowed. "What kind of accounts?" "Let's see." I opened the folder. 7 years of Rachel paying rent on this house while you freeloaded. 7 years of medical bills from your son's abuse. 7 years of therapy that my granddaughter and great-granddaughter are going to need. Pain and suffering. Emotional distress. I slid a piece of paper across the table. $500,000? Vincent's jaw dropped. "Are you insane? We don't have that kind of money." "Then you'll get it. Liquidate your assets. Sell the BMW. Take out loans. I don't care how you do it, but you're going to pay every single cent." Denise laughed bitterly. "And if we don't?" I held up my phone, showing the video that had already been copied to multiple cloud accounts and email addresses. "Then this goes viral on every social media platform. Your faces, your names, your voices, admitting to assault. Good luck finding jobs or housing after that. I'm sure your neighbors would love to see what kind of people they've been living next to." The room fell silent except for the sound of Emma's crayons on paper. "There's one more thing," I continued. "Rachel is divorcing you, Vincent. Today, the papers are already filed." Rachel emerged from the bedroom, standing tall for the first time in years. Her shoulders were back, her head was high, and her eyes held a fire that her husband had tried for 7 years to extinguish. "I'm taking Emma and moving to Toronto," she announced. "My real father has already found us an apartment." "What do you mean, your real father?" Gloria asked suspiciously, her voice dripping with confusion. That's when the front door opened one more time. Marcus walked in, looking healthier than he had in years. His face had filled out, his eyes were clear, and he moved with the quiet confidence of a man who had finally found peace. "Hello, everyone," he said with a slight smile. "The doctors say I've made a remarkable recovery. It's amazing what 2 weeks of rest and safety can do for a person's health." The Marchetti family stared at him, then at me, then back at him, trying to process what they were seeing. 2 of them. There were 2 of them all along. "You see," I explained while their minds struggled to catch up. "While you were busy destroying each other, my brother was getting the help he needed, and I was getting the justice my family deserved." Marcus walked over and put his arm around Rachel. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go home. Our real home." As we prepared to leave, I turned back to the 3 broken people sitting at that kitchen table, surrounded by the wreckage of their cruelty. "You know," I said quietly, "for 7 years you made my family's life hell. Because you thought you could. Because you thought we were weak. Because you thought nobody would ever stand up to you." I picked up Emma, who wrapped her arms around my neck and nestled her head against my shoulder. "But here's what you never understood about family. When you hurt one of us, you hurt all of us. And when you threaten our children, you wake up something that you really, really don't want to meet." I looked each of them in the eye, one by one. Sometimes the people you think are weak are just waiting for the right moment to show you how strong they really are. Sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous. And sometimes the old man on the couch is the last person you should have underestimated. We walked out of that house and never looked back. Rachel got her divorce. She got full custody of Emma. She got a restraining order that covered the entire province of Ontario. And she got her life back. We got the money. Every cent of that $500,000, paid out over 3 years by people who finally learned that actions have consequences. Gloria and Denise got 18 months each in federal prison for aggravated assault. Vincent got nothing except the knowledge that his own mother had nearly killed him and the scars to prove it. But most importantly, we got each other back. Because at the end of the day, family isn't just about blood. It's about who's willing to fight for you when the world gets dark. It's about who will trade places with you when you can't fight anymore. It's about love that's stronger than fear and courage that's deeper than anger. Looking back on this story, I realize I became someone I never thought I'd be. 3 years in that rehabilitation center didn't cure my anger. It focused it, sharpened it, turned a wildfire into a laser beam. But here's the thing. Don't become like me. Don't let rage consume you until violence becomes your only language. I spent 3 years learning to control my temper. And the truth is, I should have learned to channel it differently. God gave us strength, not just to fight, but to protect. The lesson isn't that you need to break bones to defend your family. It's that you need to stand up before things get that far. Speak up sooner. Get help before the situation explodes. These grandpa stories we tell ourselves about being too old, too weak, too tired to make a difference. They're lies. Age doesn't make you powerless. It gives you wisdom. Experience doesn't make you fragile. It makes you dangerous to those who prey on the innocent. My advice? Don't wait until your family is broken before you act. Don't let bullies convince you that keeping the peace means accepting abuse. And don't ever think that being gentle means being weak. Sometimes love looks like fury. Sometimes protecting your family means becoming the storm they fear. But God help me. I wish I'd found another way. The real lesson from these grandpa stories isn't about revenge. It's about recognition. Recognize the signs early. Speak up sooner. Get help before things explode. Because once you cross the line I crossed, there's no going back to the person you used to be. Every family has someone like Marcus, someone gentle who needs protection. And every family needs someone willing to be the shield. Just try to be a smarter shield than I was. This story changed all of us. I pray yours has a gentler ending. If this story made you think about the protectors in your own family, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below about a time someone stood up for you, or about a time you wished someone had. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that matter. Because sometimes the most powerful grandpa stories are the ones that remind us what we're truly capable of when love is on the line.